Welcome back to the Championship Lowdown podcast, and it is time for our game week one review, the first review of the season. I am joined here with Chris back on the podcast after a couple of weeks away. Welcome back, Chris.
Welcome. Good to have the football season back underway again as well.
Absolutely. So we'll start off in the place where probably most people expect us to go. Friday night, season opener, Birmingham City 1, Ipswich Town 1, and a game fueled with controversy as if we would expect nothing less from the first game in the Championship, particularly with the refereeing decisions in the game. So I guess we'll start there. So obviously we had the disallowed goal from Kyogo in the first half, and then late on a penalty, which some Birmingham fans believe was a pretentious decision to level the game in the 95th minute from George Hurst. So I was supposed to ask you first, what are your thoughts on both of them decisions? Do you think they were right, or do you think there's been some mistakes made there?
I think, and I suppose we'll prepare for the backlash here. I think they're both right decisions. I know they're harsh. The penalty, clear cut more than anything. You can't have your hand that high in the game, especially in the box. I think it's easily a pen. The goal I felt was a little harsh. I know it's soft, but in today's game, again, you can't really go in like that. And I know most people are going to say you can't. It's happened the opposite way round a few minutes later after that, but it's not resulted in anything. And I think there's more of a dangerous precedent when you don't give something and it results in something like a goal, whereas you don't give something and there's just no end result, nothing comes of it, sort of thing. So I think in terms of disallowing the goal, I think it's completely fair as well.
It's an interesting one. I mean, for me, it's an awkward one with the disallowed goal because in today's game and today's climate, you probably think they are going to be given most of the time, especially like early on in the first game of the season. Ref under a bit of pressure, he's going to not exactly feel most comfortable giving stuff like that. But I think it is harsh. I think there's a world where that doesn't get given. I've seen a few of them where they can get away with that sort of thing. You know, I'm not being funny, but if you look at the size differential between Kyogo and I believe it was Greaves who was the one who was fouled, so whatever you want to say, if it was a foul or not. But he's not bodying him over. He's gone over really easily, and that's why I think it's almost in a way it should go under simulation because how easy this guy's gone down when he's about double the size of Kyogo in the foul. So it's an intriguing one. As far as the penalty goes, I think I don't really see many arguments with that penalty being given. His arm's in an unnatural position. It hits him on the hand. I don't think there's too much argument with that one. Obviously, not what you want to see in the 95th minute. As a Birmingham fan, minutes away from beating arguably the title favourites this season. But I think you still take the point. I mean, if we'll move on to a bit more of the performance, I thought Birmingham were probably better than we expected, and Ipswich were probably worse than we expected. Obviously, Birmingham's solid unit. We knew this from last season with Chris Davis. They're always going to be difficult to beat, and they're always going to try and control the ball, which they did, which was surprising against Kieran McKenna's sort of side. They sort of thought they controlled the game for basically all of it. They've limited Ipswich to more or less no chances bar the penalty. And I don't think there's any negatives to take out from them. Ipswich, I'd say there's some concerns, but again, that's probably the hardest game they're going to have to play this season. I can't imagine them having a harder test match, maybe Southampton at St Mary's, but as far as atmosphere and fans being on top of you, I think that's the hardest game they're going to have to play. So to come out of that with a point when you're playing badly is probably a good sign for them because it's normally the sign of a winning team when you can still get points when you're not playing well. But what did you think of each team?
I think I agree with you there. You're probably not going to get a harder game than that this season. And a lot of that contributes to the fact you're playing a team like Birmingham City, a club we know have a lot of passion in their fans over the years. But to be playing them in celebratory time, they're in the Championship under a new era sort of thing. They've been a solid Championship team for years before. Whether they deserve to go down when they did is another question as well. But at the end of the day, they've bounced back stronger than any team would really bounce back from relegation. I don't think you'd see a team bounce back the way they have, and there's question marks over the way they've done it in League One, spending the way they've done in League One. But I also think in this day and age of football, if you can get away with it, you need to do it. And that's why when you say about Jacob Greaves going down easily, I think we're a lot like that in this era of football as well, where the refereeing standard isn't quite up to the way it should be, and get the decisions. You've almost got to play the ref now.
Yeah.
It's more about being smart when you're fouled than anything else. And the case in point I'll point you to is the infamous Rob Holden video over lockdown with a damn Traore.
I was thinking.
But you've just got to play the ref. I must admit I didn't put Ipswich in a place of going straight back up to the Premier League. I did have Birmingham in the automatic promotion spots, which I think they showed a lot of signs of being an automatic promotion contender. Coming up against a team who just come down from the Premier League, and the most games in the Prem, they didn't look like a team that were going to get relegated from the Prem. You know, their performances against the likes of Liverpool and City and Arsenal in the Prem. I remember them coming up against Arsenal in the Prem, and Arsenal were taking it to the corner flag with a 1-0 lead against Ipswich. And I'm pretty sure that was at home as well. So that says it all about Ipswich. But if they're going to play games for the way they did against Birmingham on Friday, I don't see them even being a top half team with that sort of standard of football.
Yeah, it is an off day, isn't it? I don't think they're going to. First game of the season is always going to be not really a true representation of what you should see from a team for the rest of the year. I think there's some changes to be made in the Ipswich team. I think there's better players sat on the bench for them than there was actually in the starting 11. As far as Birmingham go, I was very impressed by Sai Samuel and his Championship return. Obviously, now more of a right back, it seems, but he was really, really good. I think we awarded him man of the match on our social media, which you don't follow already, Championship Lowdown on Twitter. But Keshi Anderson was great. You know, he's really transformed his career since he made that move to Birmingham last year. Was probably his best season, and he looked good again last night. I think Stansfield left some to be desired for a £20 million player. Obviously did get the goal, but also had a few chances where he could have extended that lead, and he did, make a meal of it. But yeah, I think Ipswich were solid defensively. They could have let in a lot more goals, but then you obviously argue, with the disallowed goal and stuff like that, whether there could have been more regardless. But I think they're two good sides, and a draw was probably, I think Birmingham probably deserved to win the game, but a draw is probably what most people would have expected from an opening day game against two sides that are going to be within the top six, more or less 100%. We know that. So, yeah, it's an intriguing one, but Birmingham definitely, for anyone who was questioning whether Birmingham could be at the top of the table this season, I think that game pretty quickly put them rumours to bed that they really will be up there this year. But yeah, that's what I think for me. I don't know about you, but I think Ipswich just, there's definitely some more there. I think it's just a rough game for them personally.
Yeah, I don't see. You've still got a few weeks of a transfer window left as well, so I don't see them actually being a team that don't finish in the top half. But yeah, they'll be there or thereabouts in the playoffs this season for sure for me.
Yep. Well, we'll move on to our early kickoff on the Saturday, and Southampton versus Wrexham with another bit of late drama. 2-1 with Southampton, but coming back from the absolute depths at 1-0 down all game. Looked like it was over. And then Ryan Manning kills in an absolute stunner of a free kick in the 89th minute. And then another assist for Manning as Jack Stevens gets on the end of a cross to direct it home in the 96th. And Wrexham are defeated on the opening day. For me, on this one, they were good in the first half. Second half, I thought they really struggled against what was, on paper, is a very, very good Southampton side. We did speak about this before we began, but I did find it a tad ironic from Phil Parkinson talking about bringing expensive players off the bench and, having massive budgets for a division with how they've gone about things in the last couple of years in the National League, League Two and League One. But they weren't bad, Wrexham, by any means. I think Josh Windass was particularly impressive on his debut. Kiefer Moore was a handful for Southampton. Obviously won the penalty, which got them 1-0 up for most of the game. But I think the star man of the game, quite obviously, is Ryan Manning for his contributions off the bench.
Yeah, it's an unreal free kick as well in the last minute. But I was going to mention about the financial side as well. They've had the pull for so long, and they seem to have almost lost it a bit now they've hit the Championship. League One, League Two, they were pulling in players like Jay Rodriguez. And I get that they've brought in Kiefer Moore, players like that, but now you've hit the Championship, you can get away with bringing in these players at League One, League Two level. Once you hit the Championship, you've got to look at the case of there's teams in the Championship saying no to these players. So why are you taking them when you're in the same division? Jay Rodriguez, Rathbone when Rotherham came down, all these types of players that they pulled in, and now they just seem to have lost it. Like I said, I said they'd struggle in the Championship. I did have them for a bottom half finish. I don't have them in any danger just because the bottom three, I'd say the bottom three seem nailed on, but Hull did surprise me at the weekend. But they look like a relegation team in that second half, and you look at the stats, you look at Southampton made it look like they were still in the Prem, statistically. They've absolutely dominated them on paper.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at it now, 75% possession for the Saints, 4.14 expected goals with 27 shots and 10 on target to Wrexham's 10 shots and 2 on target, one of them obviously being the penalty, which was scored by Josh Windass. So I feel like, they had their game plan. It was try and get an early goal, which they did, and then basically just hold out for the rest of the game, as you can sort of see by the momentum chart in the game. It pretty much did not touch Wrexham at all for the rest of the game after they went 1-0 up. So for me, they had the game plan. You can't really afford to do that against teams like Southampton. The quality's there in the Wrexham side. I think, Lewis O'Brien was impressive. As I said, I've already said about Kiefer Moore and Josh Windass as well. So that, the new signings look like they're going to be fine. I still think they'll be better. I just think the style is what's going to limit them, especially with players like Lewis O'Brien in the midfield, who could be so good at unlocking the play and pass around, but he's not going to be able to because the ball's going to be flying over his head every 5 minutes. So I think, it's Rosa for Wrexham. Southampton, again, just lack of clinical ability in most of that game. Obviously took their chance when it came and when they needed to, but obviously they could have scored so many goals, I think. But I will shout out Gavin Bazoon as well for what I think could be the save of the season, and we've already gone through 1 week with that one-on-one late on to keep them in it, which then spurred them on to go and win the game as well. A huge chance at the end, and it was a brilliant save. But yeah, for me, Southampton were fine. I think they'll be better, and the stats reflect they played really well. It was just a lack of clinical edge, which I'm sure they'll find in the coming weeks. And Wrexham, slight concern, but I think they'll be fine. Just need to maybe set up different ways, especially maybe a bit more attacking in games, because teams like Southampton will punish you if you try and sit back.
Yeah, I stand even more resolute on my point that they're probably going to win the league this year, and performances like that, they're going to make it look easy.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see who leaves. Obviously, Fernandes come off the bench was quite instrumental in the comeback, playing some great football. I doubt he'll be there in a couple of weeks' time. The rest of them, I honestly don't know who's linked with who. I feel like there's so much talent in this squad. You wouldn't be surprised if half the players are being looked at by teams in a higher division. But if they can keep at least the core of the team that started yesterday, maybe lose a couple, I think they'll be absolutely fine. I've got them second in the league for a reason. Will Still, you can see the style he wants to implement, and he's already got them playing the way he wants to. So I think, I wouldn't be too concerned as Southampton fan, as much as it did take 89 minutes to break their deadlock to go 1-1 and then 2-1. Obviously, it was a free kick as well. But yeah, not too much concern for Southampton in that one. But overall, just a great performance. I mean, players to speak about, I'd probably say, I think Ronnie Edwards was a worrying one for Southampton for me. He was struggling with Kiefer Moore massively, which was surprising because I believe he was either QPR's player or young player of the season last year. I can't remember which one he was given. But he really struggled with Kiefer Moore on the pitch. And when Kiefer Moore came off with his injury, I think he looked a bit more comfortable, but also gave away the penalty. I thought it was a bit of a silly challenge to make at that point. In time, Ryan Fraser looks really good for this level, as we sort of expected he would be. Robinson as well, good performance. He's still young, so there's so much potential there, and there's just so much talent on that bench. You have to feel for Southampton that even if they lose a couple of players, I still wouldn't be too concerned.
Yeah, I mean, you've got Tyler Diblin mostly on his way out of Southampton. He's not in training at the moment, apparently. He wasn't in the squad Saturday, but they apparently withdrew him from training. But whether he actually goes now, given that Grealish has gone to Everton, that remains to be seen. But I think selling him is good for the club because it gives them an even bigger war chest for this division, which we've already seen helps with promotion from them. So if they can get a good fee for him, then even more I stand by. If they a couple more signings this summer, then they'll make this division look easy.
Yeah, I will say on Wrexham side as well, I've sort of been a bit negative about some of them, but Connor Cody I thought was really, really good for most of that game yesterday. That goal line clearance he had, it was so many last-ditch challenges to stop goals. I think he was really, really impressive. And, for only £2 million, I don't think you can complain too much about that signing. I just think there's just gaps in that team. I don't think George Dobson is up to the level. I think Matty James as well. I just don't think these players are where they're in the standard that they want to be at, which is to compete at the top half of the league. I think there are a couple of signings away. I don't think it's much, but I think some new midfielders would be nice for Wrexham if they want to push on and look more up rather than down. But I think they'll be fine. I've got them in the top half, and I think I still stand by that. I think my only concern really, as it has been the whole time for all our predictions, is Phil Parkinson.
I don't see them finishing top half this season. I think they're going to need a couple of seasons to solidify in the Championship. And the one reason I say that is because of having players like Max Cleworth in the squad. Max Cleworth is a player I think is absolutely fantastic. And if he gets some time, if he has time to adapt to the Championship as well, he's someone they can build that team around to go up, start pushing on to going up.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's grown, he's come up through the levels with Wrexham, and now he looks like a really, really good player, and he's still young as well, which is always handy with an asset. At the absolute worst case, whether I don't think they will, because they don't strike me as a club that needs to sell players too often, but if they ever did, that's an asset there in itself, so that's always handy to have players like that. But yeah, I'd say slight concern for Wrexham, especially in the second half, and Southampton just need to be a bit more clinical, and they'll be absolutely flying, I think. Next up is the unfortunate game, which I didn't want to talk about, but Chris said we have to, is Middlesbrough Swansea. As a Swansea fan, obviously, we 1-0 win for Middlesbrough, thanks to a Dale Fry header from a corner. I will say I don't think Middlesbrough were particularly impressive. I think that game was it was just a bad game of football. It wasn't a good advert for the Championship at all. We didn't have a single shot in the second half of the game. They had two real chances in the whole game. It was Whittaker hitting the crossbar in the first half, and then obviously the goal from Dale Fry. But a 1-0 win decided on a set piece with no real other clear-cut chances. It's sort of just, I'm just worried about Swansea, in all honesty. I think the football Sheehan has us playing is absolutely shocking. We're a team that's so known for our identity and playing the ball across the floor. And there's so many pictures that have been surfacing of where Burgess or Cabango had the ball at the back and there is no one near them. There's just a huge gap in the midfield, which then leads to the fore and then to the attack. So for me, I'm concerned massively if Sheehan's going to have us playing like that. I can't imagine he's going to be in charge of this football club for very long, because we will not have patience with how much money we've spent this summer. But yeah, I'd love to know your thoughts on it, because for me, it's just a pretty boring game, all things considered.
Yeah, it's a result that took me by surprise with the money you've spent this summer. I had you as a playoff team with the money you've spent, to be honest. Again, I know there's really not much to talk about with the game, but it's one of the more surprising results of the weekend for me.
The only reason I wasn't surprised, our record at the Riverside is absolutely shocking. And last year, funnily enough, on the opening day of the season, we lost 1-0 at the Riverside again. So it's the same old story, really. But I wasn't too surprised. There's just no goals in this Swansea team. And I said it in my predictions, and that's why I limited us to 10th, because we've made some great signings in the midfield. Like Ethan Galbraith was brilliant. As much as we struggled, he was really good yesterday, I think. And all of us, so Burgess was fine. Our fans will say he was bad, but it's obviously because they just haven't really watched much football in the last 2 years. And that he was being told to hoof the ball along every 5 seconds, which is obviously going to make him look worse than he was. I think the squad we put out was just quite weak. Fulton is miles off of it at this level, I think. For a midfielder, we need to sign a big body midfielder if he's going to persist with a sort of a bigger build midfielder behind Franco and Galbraith or Vidal, Frank, whatever he wants to do. Liam Cullen isn't a striker at this level. He can't do it at this level. I think I just think he's miles off it. In 9, I think as a 10, he's fine as a backup, but I would not put him at striker again this season. Ronaldo, surprisingly, was one of our better players, and he's the one who's been the target of most of the we need to replace him shouts all off season. So it's an interesting one to see. But as far as Borough, again, I just wasn't really impressed. I think Aidan Morris, I couldn't speak high enough about him as a footballer in general, and he was really good yesterday, sort of dictated a lot of that game in the midfield. Fry with a goal, obviously. Again, they were just defensively solid, didn't give us a single shot in the second half. Alfie Jones as well was really good for Borough. So I think, for me, it was just it should have been a 0-0 in all honesty. Like, that's the most 0-0 game you ever watch, probably obviously decided by one set-piece goal. So neither team particularly impressive, but I think we've got a lot more concerns than Middlesbrough do coming out of that one.
Yeah, I honestly had Middlesbrough to struggle this season. I can't even remember where I put them now, but I didn't think they'd have a great start to the season. But if you're gonna have a managerial change, I think that's gonna be the key. If you it's the first game of the season, everyone's still learning the type of football they want to play for the season coming, and we know how easily a managerial change can just turn a team's fortunes around in this division.
Yeah, I just don't want to. I don't want to see us hoofing the ball forward. We had it with Michael Duff, and it went sour very, very quickly because when we had Steve Cooper, for example, was a lot more direct, like that style of football. It was forgiven because we were winning games. We were in the playoffs. You can forgive it if you're winning, but the second it goes badly, our fans will lose you very quickly. Whereas if you're a manager who plays the style of football we want to see, which is quick on the floor, passing, direct football, you'll have a lot more patience from our fans because that's what we want to see, and we sort of see the vision. But my big concern yesterday was I don't understand what we were trying to do because it wasn't quick counter-attacking football like Bristol City, we'll get onto in a minute, didn't have much of the ball but was so good on the counter-attack, and that's how they won their game. And it wasn't dominating the ball either, like we saw with other teams like Southampton, for example. It was neither of them two, so it was really confusing as to what he was trying to do. Obviously, we know what last season with Sheehan, it was fine. We had a really good run of form towards the end of the season, and that's why he ended up obviously getting the job. But for me, I am slightly concerned, and I think he's not going to last very long if we play that kind of football every week because our fans will just not have the patience, and I don't think our owners will be scared to pull the trigger on this one either.
No.
Right, so we'll move on before I carry on with my absolute moan fest of Swansea. Otherwise, we will be here for about 3 hours because that's how much I could probably speak about how bad we were yesterday. We'll go on to our next game, which I believe is Stoke versus Derby. So, again, this one was, it was sort of surprising. Obviously, it was another game with late drama. We saw that a couple of times this week. 95th and 99th minute goals, I believe it was, from Mabama in the 95th and then Sorba Thomas in the 99th from Stoke as they get a 3-1 comeback win. They were 1-0 down in this game as well, but Lewis Baker equaled it and then them 2 late goals. It was Carlton Morris who hit the back of the net for Derby. But, from a John Eustace side, who everyone was speaking very, very highly about in the start of the season, it's a pretty poor result, you have to say.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the stats of that one as well. They've looked like a side finishing in the bottom 3. 3 shots, 2 on target sort of thing. I'm a little surprised that Stoke have had to come from behind looking at those stats on paper as well. But as we know, what's on paper only doesn't even tell half the story, really. Lewis Baker feels like a name you're always going to hear in football.
Yeah.
He's always... but I think he's the type of player who, from his time with Chelsea's youth team, where he was in the under-23s for what felt like an eternity, I think he's really handy to have in this division. And I'm not surprised things didn't work out for him at Chelsea, but at the same time, he could be playing for so much better teams than Stoke, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think he's a really good footballer. He has been at this level for a very long time. I think I said it in my predictions with Stoke. There is so much potential that you can unlock in this side, but it seemed to be a poison chalice for so long. But I did say if anyone was going to do it, it probably will be Mark Robbins. And they were good in this game. You're playing against a team who's been touted to finish as high as sort of 8th, 9th in the league by some people, under a very, very good manager who is notoriously difficult to beat. And we have seen it with so many teams where he's overachieved and overachieved again. So I think it's a very good result to start the season for a team that a lot of people did not predict very high. I think our overall prediction in our table was 21st for Stoke. So I think, it's an interesting one. I think Mabama is a great signing from City on loan. Obviously, I spent a lot of his career at West Ham as well. He looks like a very goal on your first game. You can't complain too much with that. I think Sorba Thomas proved that he maybe is actually as a Welsh person, and he has his ups and downs with the national team. But when he's on it, he's on it. He's very good, and looks like he was on it yesterday with a goal and an assist to help them win that one. So yeah, I think Derby though, there's some concerns there. I mean, I'm looking at the team now, and it just doesn't look great. Like a back four of Ryan Niambi, Danny Bath, Clark, and Forsyth. Not sure about that being much higher than sort of 16th, 17th in the league. I don't think it's the full team. Again, like the midfield as well. Ibu Adams, whether he stays or not, will be probably the dictator of a lot of their hopes this season. Liam Thompson isn't amazing. Kenzo Goldmine hasn't been great. And then obviously Caden Jackson, Corey Blackett-Taylor and Carlton Morris. It's just not a team that strikes like, wow, I'm really impressed by this team. I get there's players missing. I know they've got quite a few injuries at the minute. But, with that sort of depth, it's just not, for me, not the most impressive side.
And I do just want to go back to Stoke for a minute, where we spoke about how much potential they have. This is a team who are owned by one of the richest families in Britain. Their net value is above most of the Premier League. They're worth like 9.4 billion. And I think that's 5th in the country.
Wow.
I don't think that's. I don't necessarily say they're bad owners, but when you hear some of the stories about clubs not being backed in the transfer market and things like that, and then you hear that a team like Stoke has that much money behind them and is finishing in the bottom half of the Championship, flirting with relegation and so on, you have to wonder what's going on at the club.
Yeah, 100%.
And they've made some good signings over the years. Last season I had them as a playoff team, in fact. Bosun Lau from Celtic. Johansson's one of the best keepers in the division for me.
Yeah, 100%.
And you've now got more experience in the squad at left back in Aaron Cresswell coming. So there's something going on. And I hope that Robbins can turn it round. With what he's done at Coventry, he's had Coventry on the brink for so long and then not got them over the finish line. So I just think that there's still change needed at Stoke to get to where they want to be back in the Premier League.
Yeah. I will say, just as well, super subs wise, you couldn't get much better than yesterday. Jamie Donnelly for his debut off the bench with an assist, and Tatsuki Seko as well off the bench to get an assist with him as well. Bringing Ash Phillips off the bench, this is a very highly rated young defender. So there's just so much talent in the Stoke team, and I think it would be a miss for them if they're not up the top half of the table this season with the potential. But obviously, as you said, there's just something weird with Stoke that limits them to sort of like max 15th every season, which a lot of people think is an underachievement for most years. I think, especially with this squad, it's a very talented squad, and I think it would be disappointing for them if they can't get higher up in the table this year.
Yeah, and I think Derby, if they don't back themselves next summer or in January, they're not going to be a Championship team again soon.
No. Well, we'll soon find out. But next up, this was probably the biggest shock of the weekend, I'd imagine. Sheffield United won Bristol City 4 at Bramall Lane on their first game under Ruben Sells, and obviously the first game for Bristol City under Gerhard Struber. And it's safe to say one manager came off a lot better than the other. It was Scott Twine with an absolute beauty of a free kick and another goal late on, paired with Ross McCrory and Anis Mehmeti goals, which cancelled out Tyrese Campbell's early equaliser. And, the big thing for me in this game was 74% possession, 20 shots, 6 on target. Bristol City, 5 shots on target, 4 of them resulted in goals. That team looked unbelievably scary on the counter-attack, I think it was safe to say.
Yeah, Scott Twine is someone who has so much praise at this level as well. He loves the Championship all the time, whenever he's here. I almost feel like that Sheffield United team have almost underestimated Bristol because of what they've done to them in the playoffs last season. I think Bristol have been massively underestimated there, and they've used that to their advantage because, again, if you want a classic case of paper only tells half the story, you look at the stats.
Yeah.
There's absolutely nothing. In all honesty, I can understand winning the game on the counter-attack narrowly. Counter-attack in football, delivering you a 4-1 win away from home as well, is a huge shock. I'm pretty sure I had Bristol in a playoff position again this season.
You did. You were a lot higher on them than we were.
And they have massively shown that they're a playoff team there this season. And they might even be on the verge of causing those automatic spots some trouble. That is a big shout, and I will say that it's very unlikely, but against a team that are going to be going for those automatic spots to do that to them away from home, they've shown that they're going to cause some problems this season.
Yeah, I won't be too hasty with Bristol City because they do this quite a lot and then they sort of hit a bit of a wall. But what I will say is I think Reece Norrington-Davies arguably put in one of the worst defensive displays we've seen in the Championship for a very long time yesterday. Just terrible, just so many errors and then leading to goals as well. But Bristol City it was just like you couldn't believe they were still scoring. It was like goal and goal and goal. I was like, wow, fair enough. But the counter attack was lethal. I think the Ross McCrory goal was the most impressive for me. It was such a nice move and it took so little passage to cut through one of the better teams in the league. I think Sheffield United 100% need a centre back. As I said, Norrington-Davies was bad, and obviously losing Ahmed Hozic is a loss, which they is hard to replace at this level. But yeah, Bristol City, I think, is obviously the talking point. I can't really fault any member of that squad for how they played yesterday. I thought they were all really... Oh, no, yesterday, sorry. On Saturday, I thought they were really, really good. Sheffield United, I don't know, honestly. I did say in my manager ratings and in my predictions, I was concerned with the fit of Ruben Sells at Sheffield United. I didn't really think he was all too impressive anywhere he's been, apart from Reading. And I think stylistically it wasn't a fit after just playing Chris Wilder football. And it looks like I'm going to be proven right if they keep playing like that, because it just doesn't work for a team like Sheffield United, because you need someone who's going to just get results, get wins and get you over the line into the playoffs, at least, if not automatics. And playing like that, they are currently bottom of the league after one game, obviously. So yeah, it's an intriguing one. But for me, it's just an impressive Bristol City. I wasn't high on Gerhard Struber. I wasn't particularly impressed by what he did at Barnsley. Didn't know too much about him, obviously, from where he's gone since then. But obviously, he's changed his way of play and he's adapted it really well, because they look really, really good. And I think there will be some shocks this season if they can continue to play like that every week. But I also don't think they'll get that freedom, especially on the counter attack, against most other teams in this division. I will say that.
Yeah, I don't think any of us had Sheffield United to be automatics in our season predictions. And again, I know it's only first game of the season, but they've shown they're probably not going to be there. I had them as playoff winners, I will say that. My mind might have been changed there too. I do think they'll be in the top 6 no matter what comes this season. Sheffield United fans might be celebrating because QPR are in for Norwich and Davies, apparently.
God.
So they might be celebrating soon, especially after that display.
It was just like, I don't know how many errors were actually contributed to a goal happen. I think it was only one actually got officially put down, but there was just so many mistakes at the back and just poor play. I think Cooper was particularly poor as well. Obviously, letting 4 goals is not good on any day, but he seemed to struggle for what is supposed to be one of the best keepers in the division. It was not a glamorous display from him either. I think Femi Siriki isn't exactly what they want in fullback either. There's definitely improvements we made in this team. I think attacking-wise, they were fine. Louis Barry was definitely causing problems, had a good few chances. O'Hare got the assist. Obviously, Tyrese Campbell did score and was clinical when he had his chance. Obviously, they've got to keep Gus Hamer, which I think is going to be easier said than done if they want to be competitive. So it's intriguing. Obviously, they got a decent fee for Ahmed Hozic, which I'm assuming they're going to reinvest in a centre back because they cannot be starting Norrington Davis again. So yeah, for me, Sheffield United has big concerns with Ruben Sars, and I did say at the start of the season before we even began, I was concerned about that move, and it looks like he's going to prove me right if they are to continue in this sort of reign of form. And he also won't be there very long because this is a team that will not accept being anywhere outside the top 6.
No, not at all. I don't even think they'd accept finishing outside of the automatic spots, really. I know the performance doesn't suggest an automatic promotion team, but I think the goal is this team have been such a yo-yo now of going up to the Premier League, coming back down, going up, coming back down, that to have missed out 2 seasons in a row, I think after the second time, you run the risk of becoming like what Stoke City did, what Birmingham City did, what all these teams did. The one thing I've always said about the Championship is it's like a black hole. You can't go up from a Championship too quick. But then you also can't spend too long in the Championship either.
Yeah.
Because then you run the risk of being like these teams like Stoke and Birmingham, who over the years have had players who've, we've seen the likes of Jude Bellingham and things like that come from Birmingham. And obviously they were never going to hang around. But the problem with being in the Championship for so long is you sort of develop these talents and you develop them into these players, and then you can't build a team around them, because to build a team you need to sell them, but then these are the players you want to build around as well at the same time. So you're sort of stuck in this catch-22 situation with them. And that's when these players sort of force their way out, where they're like, well, I'm better than Championship football. You can't deliver me to a standard above Championship football because you can't build a team.
No, 100%. I think it'll be interesting to see who they keep hold of by the end of the window. There's players in there who are quite clearly too good to be playing at this level. So it'll be intriguing to see. I think Gus Hamer was probably the main one that's going to be leaving this window. And if they keep hold of him, I think they'll be fine, but I can't see it happening personally. But, so as we said, disappointing for Sheffield United, but huge success for Bristol City. And I'm sure their fans will be very, very happy if they continue playing like that every week. Finally, for a lot of sort of last game, we'll go into a lot of detail with. And sort of a shock, as much as the result wasn't, the performance definitely was. It was Leicester 2, Sheffield Wednesday 1. But Sheffield Wednesday did hit the lead in this game, thanks to Nathaniel Chalobah. Obviously was cancelled out by 2 goals from defenders, Yannick Vestergaard and Wout Faes. First of all, I'll start off with intriguing celebration from Wout Faes after putting his team 2-1 up. Obviously, he got booed when he came off the bench, I believe, earlier in the game. And then he decided to cup his ears to the fans, so he went from celebrating quickly to booing the guy who just won them the game. It was definitely an intriguing one from him. Obviously, I'm assuming Leicester aren't too fond of him, and I don't blame them. He's not the best. But, he gets the winning goal thanks to a dual assist from Bilal El Khanous as well. To me, is unbelievable for this level. And I watched him when he was at Genk. I actually went to Belgium to watch him play. And, he's far too good to be playing at the Championship. But from a Sheffield Wednesday perspective, this is a very positive thing, you have to say, and also fair play to the fans, obviously, for their protest at the beginning. I think everyone here and everyone in the football world is hoping that they can solve that solution very, very quickly and they get a new owner, because it's just terrible to see a club like that being put through what they're being put through. Obviously, it's a big, big club for this division. But for the players they had on the pitch, they came together and they put in a very respectable performance away from home at what is going to be a team that is going to be really high up the table this season.
Yeah, interestingly, I don't think any of us had Leicester in the. I think we have them top half, but
they were 6th overall. I think you put them 10th, I put them 7th, and then Elliot and Ollie put them in 5th and 6th. I think.
I think a lot of our predictions with Leicester came from if the points deduction does occur.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, again, I think everyone has underestimated Sheffield Wednesday there, and I think we've been a little disrespectful to the players with our score predictions. Really,
yeah, we did have some big scores.
We're so used to seeing the sort of transfer sagas that develop in the Premier League of, Gyökeres going on strike from Sporting, Ishak training with his old club instead of Newcastle. These sort of things, we almost forget about the professionalism that some footballers have in the lower divisions. And, these Sheffield Wednesday players have clearly showed up and said, our fans have travelled a long way, we've got a job to do, sort of thing, and got the job done. So they've massively done themselves proud there. Even having not come away with the win, they've done themselves proud there and done a lot of credit to their club.
100%. As I said, this is a team that I think we all wrote off getting quite heavily beaten. But again, it was sort of more the unknown if who was actually going to turn up and play on the day. Obviously, they've not been paid. Half of them are barely under contract. I don't even know how the situations are even working with some of them. Like Barry Bannon, for example, his contract was supposedly not even valid, so I don't know what's going on there. But either way, these players haven't been paid for months now, and they've come together as a group. And as you said, let's just get on with it. Show up for these fans, and they absolutely showed up. I thought, especially Piers Charles in net, I thought he was brilliant. I don't know, I've just double checked now. 11 saves. Really, really impressive performance. Albeit he did let in 2 goals, but you can't really blame him too much for either of them. As I said, Bannon with a red card was a bit of a, sort of maybe you could say cost him at least a point in this one. But again, I just don't think you can complain all too much as a Sheffield Wednesday fan seeing that sort of performance with a team that is not paid and has basically zero depth on the bench, bar Ike Ogbo seems to be the only proper high standard player for their sort of team left in there. But if they can just and we all hope obviously they can figure out a way to fix this situation, get a new owner in, get the players played, and get new players in as well to back the squad up. Maybe 24th consensus it could end up being a bad prediction if they play like that every week.
Yeah, and I don't think we've took into account the situations that they've had in terms of teams that have been in this sort of position in the past. Derby, for instance, when they went down from a championship, how close they came to survival with their point deduction and things like that. And yeah, we could absolutely be hanging our heads in shame at the end of the season if Sheffield Wednesday are going to turn up and play like that every week, because if they can play like that against a team like Leicester, then the teams that are going to be around them fighting for survival of the bottom 3 are in some serious trouble.
Yeah. Before we wrap up on this one, I will say Fatawu and Al-Khanous are far too good to be playing in the Championship. And if at least one of them stays, Leicester are going to be a massive, massive problem, because Al-Khanous proved yesterday he is far above this level, and Fatawu has always been too good for the Championship. He was unbelievable last time he was here. And I'm sure if he stays again, he's going to be unbelievable again. There's so much talent in this Leicester squad, and all they need to do is avoid these financial problems, and they'll be absolutely fine. Maybe get a new striker. I think Jordan Ayew wasn't the best, all things considered. He was good, but I think there's definitely room for improvement in that striker area. But yeah, and Mavididi as well, of course. That whole forward line is just very, very good in the Championship. So I think it'll be intriguing to see who they keep hold of going into the end of the transfer window. But we will quickly gloss over the other results from the weekend. Obviously, it wasn't just 6 games, but without the 6 that we sort of thought were the best to talk about. So it was a 0-0 for Coventry and Hull. Not much to say about this one, really. Hull probably surprisingly good on defence in that game. Coventry just struggled going forward, didn't really look particularly impressive, and a 0-0 draw is just probably is how much you just say of it. It's just a 0-0 draw, not a lot happened. So Charlton Watford, though, I'm assuming it's an impressive performance, especially for maybe from your perspective as well. Harvey Nibbs in the 94th minute.
Yeah, Charlton were a team who I think we put to finish quite comfortable.
I don't think anyone had them down, yeah.
But again, Watford, an established side in this division, so opening up with a win on the opening day, really good result for them. And like their transfer business has suggested, they're here for business sort of thing. Show that they're the real deal, and maybe a team who could also have a couple of seasons in the Championship and be contending to get back to the Premier League.
Yep. Millwall beating Norwich at Carrow Road 2-1 thanks to a late goal from Macaulay Langstaff. Again, sort of surprising, but also not too much, especially from my perspective. I think Millwall are going to be right up there this season. They're a very, very, very talented team, and I would be surprised if they're not competing with the playoffs all season. But Norwich, maybe not, as I said, it's not the worst team to lose to, but you don't want to open up with a home defeat on your first game.
I'm not too surprised by Norwich losing, mainly because of the players they've lost over the past season and a half. So, again, could be a bottom half finish for them this season.
Fair enough. We had 2 1-0 wins. Pompey away at Oxford, thanks to Sigic on his debut, and West Brom at home to Blackburn, thanks to Isaac Price. Not a lot to say about these 2 games. They both seem pretty disinteresting. Just one team got the job done, the other one struggled. Blackburn were particularly poor, I thought, based on what I've seen of that game. And I don't think Oxford were setting the world alight at all, really.
No, as you know, I went to the pre-match on Thursday for Oxford Portsmouth. They seem up for it. Gary Rowett's a really good manager in this division. Elliot Moore, the more surprising revelation of revealing that they're gunning for top half, which it's nice to see ambition in a club.
Yeah.
They've took this division by surprise last season, and they're aiming to do it again, sort of thing. So losing at home to a side like Portsmouth doesn't help that ambition. I think making your home stadium a fortress is a big thing, but at the same time, Oxford and Portsmouth are so familiar with each other that no matter what league it's in, and this was one thing that got brought up on Thursday as well, no matter what division it is, Oxford Portsmouth seems to be on the fixture list that season.
Yeah, can't seem to avoid each other, can they? Finally, the last game we haven't really spoke about was QPR Preston, 1-1 draw at Loftus Road, thanks to a Whiteman own goal and Osmajic it was a very, very nice goal, actually. Just one long pass from Daniel Iverson straight to Osmajic, who tucked it away to draw that one for Preston. As I said, it was just sort of I think most of us predicted a draw in this one, not too many goals, and that's how it sort of played out. But QPR agreeing if you're Richard Kone now to put into their attack could be quite scary for the rest of the division if that transfer is to go through in the next couple of days.
Yeah, especially with having bought in Poku from Peterborough before. Yeah. If he was to go to QPR as well.
100%. But yeah, not too much to say about it. As I said, there's just a few games where it was just close games, edged out by a goal, or even just being a draw. So they are your results from the first week of Championship action. So thank you very much to Chris for joining me for our Week 1 review. And later in the week, you will see Ollie and Elliot, the other 2 members of the Championship Lowdown podcast. They will do the preview for the upcoming game Week 2 fixtures. Obviously, Tuesday night we'll see the Carabao Cup. So that'll be another good indicator for some of the squad players in the Championship to get some minutes. But that is all we have for you for our review. So thank you very much to Chris for joining me this week, and we will see you all next week.